Zenni's Blocks lenses help to protect the eyes by keeping harmful blue light out. Because they're virtually clear, add Blocks to any Zenni frame for stylish, all-day protection. Get a complete pair of prescription or non-prescription Blocks glasses starting at just $24. Protect your eyes now at Zenni.com.
Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. You and I are told increasingly we have to choose between a left or right. Well, I'd like to suggest there is no such thing as a left or right. There's only an up or down.
It has been long overdue to expose the truth that the Democrats and Republicans are sucking the life out of America's liberty and usurping our rights at every turn. Now is the time to seize our civil liberties and take back our individual rights. Here on Southern Liberty, we will expose it all. With his musket on his back, the Declaration of Independence in one hand, and the Constitution in the other, here's your host, Roderick Threets.
Good evening, Southern Liberty family. Happy Sunday to you. Welcome to the end of the weekend. I know y'all hate hearing me say that, but it is. All my folks out here in Palm Beach County, Brevard, Broward, Dade, Collier County, Hendry County that's listening. I appreciate y'all this Sunday as always. Make sure, if you're not following this podcast, make sure you are going to any major podcast platform, including Amazon, Pandora, iHeartRadio. Go ahead and hit that click for the subscribe and let that thing download down. You can listen to all the episodes all the way back to number 1 on there. If you're inclined just to only, listen on Sundays, obviously you're probably listening to it right now on public radio in your respective counties, and I appreciate that 100%. But I do encourage you to go download the podcast so you can listen to Southern Liberty 7 days a week if you want to. And if you want to tap in live to the live chat, make sure you go to live.bpmg.us. If you're not part of the Southern Liberty BPMG family, make sure you're going to patreon.bpmg.us to go ahead and check that out and get on board and get exclusive updates and legislative updates from me on that channel. This evening, Southern Liberty family, I have a special guest that I very much respect in all the world. You already know how we do on here. We bring that fire conversation. We make you feel uncomfortable because, again, y'all have heard me say this for the last 3 years. It's time for us to get uncomfortable about what we believe in, but we see little bit of progression in that digression as the other side continues to push their agenda right down everyone's throat, even folks on the right. We have to keep pushing. We have to keep pushing, because if we don't, that liberty you guys talk about, that you yearn for, that you live for, that you breathe, is going to be gone because you sat back and did nothing. You sat back and did nothing. And then your grandkids will look at you when they look through the history books and call you weak. Call you weak. We can't call the people of the civil rights movement weak. We can't call the people of the Civil War weak. We can't call them weak. They stood up for liberty. We can't call the 3% on December 16th, 1773 as weak because they thwarted a tyrannical and statist type government. And here we are here in the 21st century. We have learned the lessons of that and watched other countries fall because of the same nonsense, yet we still sit here complacent. How much do you really care about liberty? Really sit back and think about this. How much do y'all care about liberty? Because if you dare, remember, liberty is in the blood. Liberty is in the blood, people. It's in your blood from the founding. It's in your blood through all of the patriots that died. War of 1812, Civil War, Spanish-American War, French-American War. Even the Seminole War. Americans died in the Seminole War to try to save the Seminole Indians and the Timucuans. But it seems like today in the 21st century, people have relegated that bloodline to something else. And if the people that lived on this soil before us looked at us now and came back from the dead, they would slap literally all of us. They would slap all of us for being complacent for so long. Some of us woke up a lot sooner. And we out here. That's just why we have the Southern Liberty Podcast. That's why we have people like my guest that is going to be on here in just a second to talk about these things. But the rest of you that have still continue to stay asleep, that continue just to be complacent and keep your head in the sand, you're not thinking about your children, what they got to live through the aftermath of you being complacent, you being sleeping. You're not thinking about that. You're thinking about old selfish you. Old selfish you. That's all. Stop being selfish and get uncomfortable about what you believe in. Get uncomfortable about what you believe in. You believe in Christ, you go to church every day and sit in those pews every Sunday. Some of you are coming home from church right now, listening to me in your car, either via the podcast platform or via the radio right now. Y'all listening to me. And just as devoted as you are to church, as devoted as you are to Christ, remember Christ is the epitome of liberty. He is the epitome of individuality, individual rights. He is the epitome of that. But yet, when it comes to your own family, when it comes to your own country, you are complacent. You are complacent. That's got to stop. That's got to stop. Let me go ahead and introduce my guest. A lot of you know her. She always spits out hot fire on the TikTok, bringing that flame as always. I wouldn't say sit and put people down in their place, but it's kind of like that reality slap that goes across your forehead when that red light hits you. You know what I'm saying? That this is the type of guest I have on. You already know, right? Y'all already know I always mess with the elite. I'm gonna say that flat out. I'm gonna mess with the elite because these are the people. These are the folks that's gonna help us get over this hump. If you just sit back and just listen and take in what we're saying, and you will see that the universe you may be living in might not be the ideal universe. You might learn something instead of shutting it down because of your opposing political beliefs. But let me go ahead and introduce my lovely co-host. She goes by on the TikTok and all that other social media stuff. She goes by Mixed Patriot. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well.
You're in Spantabulous? Are you doing Spantabulous?
I am fantabulous. I am, like we said, I'm on the right side of the dirt, so it could be way worse.
What you said. So I'm gonna have to ask you right at the gate, why the Mixed Patriot?
Well, it's actually pretty funny. So I actually, I started on TikTok to actually spy on my kid, right? And so as I got into it a little bit more, I had to change my name, and I started to think about what represents who I am. And I was raised, so for those that don't follow me or watch my videos, I am multiracial. And so I was raised to never discount or disregard any side of me. And so for me to claim that I am just Black or just white or just Puerto Rican, that is denouncing, right? Another part of me, the culture, the history that made up who I am. And so growing up, we were just called mixed. You're mixed, you're multiracial. I didn't think multi-patriot would work. So I wanted to grasp that part. And then the patriot is, I love this country. I love everything it represents that it can be, where it has come from, where you can go, what you can accomplish if you just work hard. And, I'll be the first to say we don't have the greatest of past. No country does, right? But the freedoms that we have to be who we are and to accomplish what we want is unprecedented. And so I will always, stand by America, fly that flag, support, our men and women of the service, and I will back that blue, and I'm a patriot. So I put the two together, and that's how you came up with Mixed Patriot.
There you go. Stir it up. Don't throw it on steak, though. We ain't gonna know how that's gonna turn out, but don't throw it on no steak. Now, I'm gonna ask you this other question. Have you always been? Let me. I like to word it a different way to brain tease my audience. Right? When did you become Americanized? There we go. That's a good one. Yes.
It is actually. When did I become Americanized? Well, I'm gonna give you the cliche answer at birth, but no. So,
ain't that the truth?
Right? Like when I was born, I was American. Actually, it's really funny because I grew up. I'm part of that generation that we did not have the cell phones. Right? We did not have technology in your head. So my family, the way that they did it, right. I was obviously raised by a biracial couple. They registered for both parties. My mother registered as one, my father, so that they got pamphlets and all the handouts and everything that would come during election season. They got it from both sides, so that they can make an informed decision.
That's smart.
Yeah, it was kind of like, okay, that's actually pretty intelligent. Obviously in your midterm and those kind of in your preliminary elections, like they had to vote that party or just abstain and not vote. But it gave them the full picture because we were never told to vote a party. You were told to vote which candidate matched your ideals. And so I will admit, I went to college, and that I went to college in the South. So that's Democrat side grabs you, right? It's, well, don't you want everything basically taken care of for you? Your parents took care of it for you, so now let us take care of it for you. And so you kind of get to a point like, what, maybe this sounds good. And then I started to actually research, right? My mother is a proponent of always educating yourself. She has 2 master's degrees. She always educate, always keep learning, and question everything. Even if it's from people that you trust and believe, question it. Why are you just taking it as fact? And so it was my sophomore year in college, and I was sitting there and I'm thinking, I'm not going to age myself, but it was, pre-election year. And I started to question everything. I started to research everything, and I started to find the history, the data, and the facts of, which party supported what and what they stood for. And I knew where I wanted to go as a person, where I wanted to succeed as a person. And it realized that, okay, wait a minute. There is a party that not always, right, but mainly aligns with what I believe. My Christianity, my background, what I want to achieve and how I'm going to get there. And at that point, I started to realize, the lies or the facade that was the Democrat Party, and how they had just convinced a whole bunch of people to go along with them under propaganda and false information. And it was like, okay, wake up moment, right? And it was like, what do you want to achieve? And if you figure out what you want to achieve in life, and I don't really even associate with a party. I tend to vote one party, but what policies, what person is going to help you get to where you want to go and to better your family? And just, it's it's been kind of historically that way. I research both sides every election. Every election, I still look at both sides, and I choose the right candidate for where I want to go. But I would say probably around 18, 19, it was when I kind of really woke up. But yeah.
So you basically woke up when you got your right to vote. You had already seen that. This is what I'm gathering. You had seen your parents become informed voters, right? And you've probably heard me say this before. An informed electorate is a dangerous electorate because they can't hide. They can't hide from you, from what your agenda they're pushing. When you have the people that are just one-sided, like, they all vote Democrat or they all vote Republican, you end up pigeonholing yourself. You end up pigeonholing yourself into all of the beliefs of one party or one side of the ideological spectrum. And then when you look at the other side of the other side, you're like, oh, that's just completely opposite and ass backwards, this, that, and the third. And I tell people all the time that, there are some policies on the left I agree with, but let's minimize the government in it. What can we do as a community to make that work? The right automatically dismisses basically all the left's policies, and the left does the same thing. I know there are some leftists that tell me that they agree with a lot, with quite a few conservative policy, but their hang up is it's too autonomous, which some of them are a little too autonomous. I'm not advocating for statism. Don't get me wrong. I'm the anti-statist to the T. But again, the oversight should still come from the community. And that's the problem I have with both sides. It's like, you guys agree on everything to the most part. The question is, who wants more government in it than the other person, right? And that's where we're at.
Yep, and that's really why. Growing up when I was younger, I would always tell people I'm fiscally Republican and I'm socially liberal, because we were taught, and again with further research, I realized that this wasn't true. But we were taught that this one side was accepting of all, and the other side was more about the financial gain, and it was very much Christianity, and like, this is, if you don't believe this, we disagree with you. I have come to find that is not necessarily the truth, or that the mindset has changed, but I am a huge proponent of the government does not belong in my personal life, in my pocket. I want small government. I need the government when we need you in certain elements and aspects. Absolutely, you are a benefit in certain, but the government has developed too much power. And that's what we're looking at right now. We're looking at a government who is no longer feeling that they're in the position that they work for the people. They have forgotten that it is by the people, for the people. And that right there puts me just, especially this administration, which I think is what people are having a difficult time articulating, right? It's not that, oh, we hate all liberals. Oh, we hate all Democrats. Oh, it's not that. It's, you are intelligent and capable enough to drive your own life. Why do you need the government to do it for you? And that's where I think there's that huge disconnect, as the Democrats are looking at it like, well, they're not driving it for us. They're just really helping out. They're making sure that the pathway is clear. Well, that's not how the pathway is designed to be. Nobody said the pathway needs to be cleared and smooth, but you got to get on that pathway and you got to start walking. And I'm going to walk without the government smoothing that pathway, whatever that looks like for me.
That's right.
And so that's where I kind of fall with mine.
Right, and see, and that's the whole thing with the Democrat Party, and there's quite a few Republicans on board with what I'm with that are in this group that I'm about to group them in, but a lot of them, right, they holler about capitalism is bad, right? They holler about capitalism is bad. All capitalism is bad, but what they fail to tell the people is that the crony capitalism is what's bad. Pure capitalism is not bad at all. Now, once we shift the conversation from capitalism to crony capitalism, guess who is the biggest proponent of crony capitalism? It's our federal government. They participate in the means to determine who wins or loses. They're in that business all the time. I mean, for example, let's take that executive order Joe Biden, I'll call him the usurper in chief, that he signed that would only give loans to black farmers. Well, hello, crony capitalism. Hello, people. Government picking winners and losers. Hello, people. And people thought that was okay. That is not okay, because you're advocating for the expansion of government. You're advocating for the government to be in the middle of your business and specifically say these black people win and these white folks and Hispanic folks don't win. Like, no, the government's role in that is a no. If you're going to allocate money for all of them. Right?
Yep.
It even goes to the quid pro quo that the federal government puts on the states. Well, if you take, for example, 4 years ago was the big Medicare expansion to the states, right? During the midterms. Federal government said, well, if you expand Medicare, we will give you, said state, we'll give you $500 million to expand Medicaid. And the states that didn't expand Medicaid didn't get that $500 million. And they got pigeonholed by the federal government. See, this is what I'm talking about, the crony capitalism that the government participates in. And the Democrats and the folks on the left do not seem to understand that. They just want to admonish all capitalism. And I was like, no, stop the government from picking winners and losers, like Wall Street, for example. Stop picking the winners and losers. Let people, if they lose money, they lose money. You're done. The automobile industry goes bust. Guess what? It goes bust. Government should not be in the middle of that bailing people out.
Nope, exactly. And that's what started and that's the thing. That's what capitalism is, what got this country to where it is. It has got people of all races and backgrounds to have success. And so they want to sit there and they want to talk about, oh, well, you need to get rid of capitalism and, this and this is racist. This holds people down. You're going to do the complete opposite. Capitalism is what allows minorities and people to come up and to change their current lifestyle, to change where they are. And that's across all races. I mean, I'm a proponent of saying that it is classism, that there is that's the true problem. And right now they're sitting there looking at, get rid of capitalism and not, to your point, crony capitalism, which is that collusion between business, right? The business class and the political class. And so you're looking at social media, you're looking at mainstream media. If it benefits the government, we're going to invest in it. We're going to make sure it thrives. We're going to make sure that you have a monopoly and you're set up where you're protected, right? So that you will continue, but it's quid pro quo. What are you going to do for me? And
exactly.
It's true capitalism.
Which brings us to what's been happening with this disinformation campaign and the federal government literally standing at the podium saying they are colluding with social media right in our face.
We are taking it and I mean, here's the question, right? We get outraged, you're taking it lying down. So it's like, but what do you do? But at the same time, people seem to be okay with this. But who is determining what misinformation is? Because 6 months ago, there was some misinformation that was supposedly, they're all wrong, shut it all down. And now we're backpedaling. So it's misinformation until we determine that it's not misinformation. But now we've cost time and effort for you to give us the actual truth because we've been hiding it for so long because it didn't fit the narrative. But too much evidence is now proving it. It's just this control narrative that people seem to be okay with. And if you don't allow true capitalism to strive, you're never going to have anybody that comes up to combat that. You're just not. You're heading towards socialism. You're heading towards communism. Right.
Historical context to this whole misinformation campaign, right? If we go, this trick has been played before, right? And I'm gonna put it in definitely in a historical context. I remember reading the law books, because a lot of I'm a law junkie. I read Supreme Court cases like cover to cover, right? And the time leading up to Plessy versus Ferguson, right? There was this government was putting out propaganda, particularly Rutherford B. Hayes, was putting out propaganda that black folks would not mix well with the modern white person, modern then, right, being the late 1800s. When it came to the Plessy versus Ferguson decision in 1896, that determined separate but equal, right? At that point, Jim Crow was literally solidified at that point, right? Now, in this instance, again, the government played a role in capitalism. Again, right? Due to the misinformation about black people, started Jim Crow. Black folks did not participate in the white man's system. So what did black folks do? They created their own system. And it was capitalism. And yeah, they had government involvement because of taxation, things like that. But they thrived until more misinformation came down from the government that caused one of the Black Wall Streets to be destroyed, and the other 4 Black Wall Streets to be bought up by the federal government once they were abandoned, and put public land grant research universities on those particular lands. All because of misinformation.
Yep. And for those, from the government. You saw it in the propaganda, in the Jim Crow era, right? The imagery, the messaging, everything that was put out. You're seeing it's almost like this juxtaposition of you're seeing it today, right? This is the narrative we're going to give you. This is the story. At the Jim Crow time, it was blacks cannot function in like our white society. Blacks are savages. Blacks are, these clown looking characters with the imagery and the cartoon that we did. And now the narrative is, oh, well, whites are the enemy. Whites are who's to blame for where you are. Whites are what's bad. And so that's now that propaganda machine and the misinformation that's coming out. And once again, people are like, that makes sense because the government told me it did. Have we not learned from history? That's like a cliche for a reason, right? If you do not learn from history, you are doomed to repeat it. And yet we see it, and it's just growing. It's terrifying.
Let's come forward a little bit. Speaking of misinformation from the government, right? The United States Public Health Service, right? Tuskegee experiment.
Oh, I was like, you're going to open a can. Yep. And complete trust us. We're from the government. We're here to help. You need to take this vaccine. Not realizing that you are now in an experiment. An experiment that the government is sanctioning, that the government is going to your personal doctor and telling them not to treat you when you come in because we need to see what happens with this vaccine. But yet we don't trust that, right? We don't trust that with the Tuskegee experiment. And then people want to know about the ouchie right now and why people are so hesitant to deal with the ouchie. Well, the syringe may have some stuff I don't need to know about. And if they are confident enough to come into my text messages, to come into my personal social media and determine what is misinformation, I do not think, since they have done it before, that they are not bold enough to go to my personal doctor. Because that's what they did during the Tuskegee experiment.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And for people to actually believe the government has your best interest in mind, to those people, I always say to them, you don't have your own best interest at heart, because the government is immoral by default, because it is ran by men and women, and men and women are fallible. So how do you put your life in trust in another person with blind trust into another human being because they were elected to government? No, fool, just because you was elected, that just means you're popular. That means you are popular. That's it. You have no further authority over my life than I have over yours, even though you're popular. But people blindly throw their faith into these people, and it's never turned out well.
And every society you need structure, you need a government, you need that central part. But ultimate power, ultimate power corrupts ultimately. And so, you have men and women. I'm not going to sit here and say that every politician that goes into politics is out for just pure power. I firmly believe that a lot of people who got started for the right reasons, right? I want to make a change in my community. I'm going to be the change I want to see. But you're dealing with people where every human has a line, right? There's something in your life that if I figure out what your trigger points are and I can give it to you, I own you, right? Whether it's money, power, whatever that is, once I figure out your levers, I can manipulate. And that's what happens when you deal with a government of this size. They like power, they like money, they like control, And you have all of these big businesses and tech and pharma that are pulling the levers until they get somebody on their side. So we have lost the voice that you are supposed to have in the government that they set this government up to be. It's been lost. And now we just have a bunch of kings and queens rather than just the one that we fought against to create this great country, because they think that they are in ultimate power. And that's where it's just, it's at the point right now where the government is too large and involved in too much.
Yeah. I know we're pretty close in age. You remember the Locks? You remember Locks, Styles P, and all them up in New York?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. You remember that song, Money, Power, Respect?
Mm-hmm.
That song exactly described what you said, right?
Yep.
First you get the money, then you get the respect, then you get the power.
Yep.
And that's exactly how the government has manipulated the people. So now the government has all the money, they have all the power over your life, they automatically give them respect. No, boo-boo. Mm-mm. Respect is earned, and it's not earned from my paycheck. It ain't earned from the income I make from whatever source it comes from. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, boo-boo. That's not how you earn respect. That's how you steal respect.
Yeah, you're taking. Well, and I saw an interview the other day where somebody had said, like, does the government have the right to know what is happening in your personal life? Does the government have a right to know how you feel about the Fauci ouchie? Like, do they have the right to know? And the person said, yes, because $3.2 trillion of government money went to help protect the American people. And it's like, no, time out. The government has no money. None whatsoever.
That's right.
We pay taxes, and that is what the government utilizes, but the government has no money. However, that's why people should be asking that question of how is our current, flounder in chief, how is he raising his income as a public servant? How did that happen? How is he making more money, and how is he worth more now after 20 some plus odd years in government? That's supposed to be a selfish kind of thing. Where is he getting that money? Oh, special interest groups that he is being backed by. And so people aren't looking at that. They're looking at like, oh, the government's helping us. They're giving us money. No, they are taking your money, demanding your respect, demanding the control, demanding where it is spent and how it is spent. And you just have to fall in line. And I'm sorry, I've owned businesses. I've had employees. If I pay you, then you work for me. And we have lost that as a people because we pay every single one of those people that are sitting in any of those seats, which means they work for us. And right now, that's just gone. You just don't see it anymore. Not everywhere, but as the mass.
That's right. That's exactly right.
It's terrifying.
We got to run the break real quick. We got to go pay the bills real quick. Southern Liberty family, y'all know what to do. Get your cheese, wine, crackers, water, Coca-Cola, whatever you sipping on this evening, and relax for a minute. We'll be back in 7.
Maria Bartiromo, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Stocks selling off into the close and finishing lower for the day and week as inflation fears overshadowed strong retail sales numbers and better than expected earnings results. The University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index dwindled in the first half of July, worse than economists estimated, who projected an increase. The Dow falling 299 points, the Nasdaq down 116, S&P 500 down 33. And shoppers increased their spending in June, giving a boost to the economic recovery. Consumers spent more last month on clothing and dining out, with retail sales rising 0.6% compared with May, according to the Commerce Department. And Moderna stock jumped over 10% in a down market following news that the drug maker will be added to the S&P 500, replacing Alexion Pharmaceuticals. The change will happen ahead of the market's open on July the 21st. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Hillary Barsky, invested in you.
School's out for summer. But if your business is running QuickBooks, you'll never get a break. Their manual processes, integration difficulties, and glitchy delays will leave you scrambling for the numbers you need. Failing to graduate to NetSuite will leave you stuck in summer school while your friends party. NetSuite by Oracle is the #1 cloud financial system, no matter how big your business grows. With visibility and control of your financials, inventory, HR, e-commerce, and more, NetSuite is everything you need to grow all in one place. Automate your processes with NetSuite and close your books in no time. 93% of surveyed businesses increase their visibility and control since graduating to NetSuite. Special financing is back. NetSuite is offering a one-of-a-kind financing program to those ready to graduate.
Head to netsuite.com/Fox right now. netsuite.com/Fox. netsuite.com/Fox.
Thousands of students converge on Tampa to hear from conservative speakers. I'm Ann Carrick, Fox News. The 7th annual Turning Point Student Action Summit taking place this weekend in Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis, one of many, speaking to the 15 to 26-year-olds.
Earlier this year, at my request, the legislature passed and I signed the strongest anti-rioting bill in the country. And this bill is very simple. It says if you riot, if you loot, if you're violent, you're going to jail, and we're going to hold you accountable.
Democrats oppose the bill, claiming it infringes on Americans' First Amendment right. Republicans believe it will help protect law enforcement and keep order in public. Migrants are entering the U.S. in record numbers.
It is the anticipation of more lenient policies under the Biden administration that is driving many of these migrants to come over the southwest land border. In many locations, they can simply walk around incomplete sections of the border wall. And when they come in, many families and children are so confident they'll be able to stay in the country, they actually seek out Border Patrol agents to turn themselves in voluntarily.
Fox's Jonathan Seary. Authorities say even the peaceful families contribute indirectly to a criminal element. A gut punch for the cruise industry in Florida.
The decision from a 3-judge panel in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals came just 10 minutes before a previous ruling from a Tampa district judge was set to take effect. The temporary stay keeps the regulations in place while the CDC appeals the ruling. This is all in connection to a lawsuit championed by Florida Republican Governor Ron DeSantis. The suit claims the multi-step process to allow cruising from Florida is overly burdensome, harming the multi-billion-dollar industry.
Fox's Rob Dawson. America's listening to Fox News.
School's out for summer! But if your business is running QuickBooks, you'll never get a break. NetSuite by Oracle is the #1 cloud financial system, no matter how big your business grows. With visibility and control of your financials, inventory, HR, e-commerce, and more, NetSuite is everything you need to grow, all in one place. NetSuite is offering a one-of-a-kind financing program to those ready to graduate.
Head to netsuite.com/Fox right now. netsuite.com/Fox.
Erratic winds are being blamed for dangerous conditions for firefighters battling several massive wildfires across the West. California crews are trying to tame a growing problem south of Lake Tahoe, while the largest wildfire in the U.S. destroys parts of Oregon.
People coming back to their homes where they've lived their whole lives. People that have built it literally with their own hands, and it's gone. It's completely gone.
The Tamarack fire consuming nearly 29 square miles. The Bootleg fire north of the California border, now more than 476 square miles, about the size of Los Angeles. More critically dangerous fire weather is expected in the coming days. Americans are ready to travel with pandemic restrictions easing, but for those who don't already have a current passport, there's a problem. The State Department reports it could take up to 18 weeks, that's 4 months, to get a passport or renew an old one. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer.
We know COVID caused a lot of problems and the nation shut down, but now the nation is opening up, and so must the State Department's Visa and Passport Division. Plain and simple.
He's calling on the State Department to add emergency personnel to resolve the backlog. Tunes take on superheroes this weekend at the box office.
What'd you do to my son?
The only way you're getting your son back is if you and I play a little basketball.
You want to play me in basketball?
LeBron James, Bugs Bunny, and the rest of the stars of Space Jam: A New Legacy score an upset. knocking Black Widow out of the #1 spot. The live-action animated sports comedy grossing an unexpected $31.7 million, while Black Widow took in $26.3 million during its second week in theaters. Number 3 at the weekend box office, Escape Room, Tournament of Champions, the sequel to the high-concept 2019 film, earning $8.8 million. Kathleen Maloney, Fox News.
I'm Ann Carrick, and this is Fox News.
Running a business shouldn't have to mean paying expensive and confusing retail rates for postage and shipping. Join the nearly 1 million businesses using Stamps.com. Get discounts up to 40% off post office rates and now up to 66% off UPS shipping rates. And never go to the post office again. Because Stamps.com brings the U.S. Postal Service and UPS right to your computer with postage on demand. It's easy to start, and you'll be printing postage in minutes. Print postage for letters and packages and schedule pickups right from your home or office 24/7 with Stamps.com. Plus, you get discounts you can't even get at the post office with some of the lowest rates you'll find, all in one place. With Stamps.com, there are no long-term contracts and no risk. Go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone, and enter code FOX for a 4-week trial, plus free postage and an easy-to-use digital scale. Save time, save money. Sign up at Stamps.com. Click the microphone and enter code FOX. That's Stamps.com, code FOX.
Yup. Welcome back. Southern Liberty. Appreciate everybody listening live in the live chat, all that good stuff. I appreciate y'all in Hendry, Collier, Dade, Brevard, Broward County listening to this on Cross Public Radio. I appreciate y'all 100%. If you're not part of the BPMG family, make sure y'all come through and subscribe to the podcast. I know y'all hear me say that all the time, but I'm going to keep saying it until we get 1 million subscribers. We're going to keep saying it because that's the goal. 1 million. I might get there and I might not, but I know I will get there. Time is the only tool that can stop me or accelerate me, and it's not going to stop me. So that's where we at. And you know, I got my special guest with me, Mixed Patriot, and we talking about Americana politics, but we're going to shift it over a little bit because you already know how we do on the Black Roundtable portion on Sundays. We have to focus on a particular demographic because we have to gain more understanding, different perspectives of view on this particular demographic. So, I want to ask first, Mixed Patriot, I hope you're enjoying yourself so far.
I am. This is amazing. This is great. I like the dialogue.
Yes, Lord, yes. And I know all the listeners and all the live listeners and the chatters in my chat box here appreciate it too. So I'm going to throw this out there, right? We've seen what's been happening around the world the last couple weeks, right? With the protests in France over vaccine passports. We've seen Cuba protests for liberty. And we've seen what's been going on in South Africa. And that's kind of where I want to put our focus on this last half hour. And I'm just going to throw this out there. Okay. Why do you think black folks, especially in South Africa, are more right-leaning than their black counterparts in the United States?
Oh, well, I mean, you didn't tell me you're going to give me a softball. It's because they've experienced socialism firsthand. I mean, socialism and communism they work every single time on paper. And then you put it into practice and it never works. And these are people who have gone through apartheid. They have gone through seeing what a socialist regime will do. They have seen what it creates. And they look at it and it's like, this is not okay. This is not equality. This is not freedom. This is not no, this is not what we want. And so I think it's a similar thing with Cubans, right? When Cubans come to America and become Cuban American, they tend to lean right because they see what the other agenda, what that the conversation towards that part leads towards. It removes your freedom as an individual. And I think because of that, they see things more clearly. They understand the benefits, the luxuries, that is freedom. That is what America represents to the world. Apparently not internally any longer, but what it represents to the world is that beacon of freedom, of what that looks like to have individual rights. And they see that because they don't live that day to day. Right.
That's exactly why. Do you think our American black folks, I'm going to stress my opinion. I think 80% of black Americans are staying too loyal to a party. Mm-hmm. Within that still same 80%, right? I think they have gotten behind the curve of their black counterparts, let's say in South Africa or Botswana or Tanzania, places like that, because they've been through the perils a hell of a lot longer, right? And I think that they are behind the curve on this one, right? And not seeing the bigger picture behind it. What do you think?
I agree completely, because I feel like, and especially this new generation, right? There's this lack of wanting to educate oneself. It is very much, I'm going to take the information, what my mother calls it, the soundbite generation, right? I'm going to take a piece of what is said, and that is what I'm going to take as fact. I'm not going to dive into it. I'm not going to question it. I'm not going to research it further. I'm going to look at this utopia that they're putting in front of me, this idealism, this rhetoric or narrative that is not accurate, but I'm not going to question it. I'm not going to research it. So not only are they staying loyal to a party that, let's just be honest, historically and currently does not give a rat's patootie about them, but they are now taking that rhetoric and the narrative that you have leaders like AOC and Bernie Sanders pushing for, right? Saying like, look, we'll bring you to equality. We'll bring you to an even playing field. We'll wipe away all the injustices that have been done to your people if you give us this power and this control. And they are taking it because in the absence of education, in the absence of true leadership, people will listen to anybody. And that puts them behind that curve of South Africans who are living it and breathing it, and they are experiencing what it does to you, what it can create. I mean, they've dealt with just as much atrocities in South Africa as we have here, and yet they see the truth behind it, right? They are going beyond what is being told to them, and they are learning and they are figuring this out, and they are looking to places like America as that beacon of example where they want to get to. And so I think Black Americans are doing themselves a disservice because they are staying so loyal. Nobody's saying throw off the history. Nobody's saying throw off what your family, has historically, but why are you not researching the truth? Why are you not willing to see things that are Democrats, party of the KKK, party of Jim Crow, party of segregation, party of slavery. And yet you think that they have your best interest in mind. Like, explain that to me. That's like if I came to your house every single day and I robbed you, but then I sent you a letter and I was like, but I care about you, right? I want you to, I'm going to help you out. I'm taking this from you because I care. And the next day I just kept shooting you down. You would be a fool and everybody around you would look at you and go, you're crazy. Why do you trust her? But that's what we are doing. That is what the Black community is doing at large. And it's just baffling because they're just not seeing or not choosing to see it. And I don't understand it.
And you know what? That's an interesting thought, because now if we sit here and just think about this a second, right? If we take just the civil rights movement, right? Started in the early 60s up until, even a little bit before then, up until 63, 64, right? Even 65, right? Mm-hmm. And if we're going to talk about liberty, right? If we're going to talk about freedom, right? That's a right-leaning idea, right? That's a right-leaning idea. So how did we come out of the civil rights era, a right-wing movement, basically, right? And all of a sudden turn left? Like, how did we turn left out of that after we said we want liberty, we want freedom, we want to be individuals, to going back to being a collective? Like, how does that happen?
You know, and I think, well, and it's written right there in history, right? Democrats are not, I mean, politicians are not stupid. You do not achieve where you have gotten in life there by being stupid, right? And so a couple things, you know, if you look at actually what happened, like stuff that on the books happened, right? So obviously LBJ is the one who pushed it through, and he is known for quoting, we're going to have blacks voting for it. Well, he didn't say blacks, but we're going to have the blacks voting for us for the next 200 years, right? Because he was against it. But because of Kennedy, he knew he had no choice, because the Republican Senate was pushing it through so hard, he knew he had no choice because it's going to look bad on them. But at the same time, what people tend to, well, everybody in the South became Democrats. Yes, because what they started to do is gentrification. What they started to do is move blacks into similar communities, and then you would not have white Democrats running for office because they didn't care about what happened in those communities. So that left a hole for blacks to run on the Democratic ticket because they thought, I'm going to do something different for my people, for my community, for my neighborhood. But the problem is that you still were pulled into the Democratic Party and you lacked power. It's similar to if you look at college, right? You come in as a freshman, you are not the power of that university. There is a hierarchy. So even though you had blacks running for office to work for the community, they are not part of the hierarchy. They are not the ones in power. So you are used as a tool for them to toe out and say, look, we have black Democrats. Look at us. We're diverse. They had no say in what happened. And it continued to get worse. The education level started to drop. The funding that then would go to the community started to drop. And so we as a whole, instead of looking back and saying, wait a minute, our own party is not helping us, the propaganda, the mindset, the tactic switched. And the Democrats said, yes, so blame the Republicans. Blame the white. They're the ones that don't care about. We're trying. Look, we gave you areas to come and run for office. What are they doing for you? And they bought it.
Yep. And you hit on something very important, right? You hit on something very important. The further push into the segregated communities, right? Mm-hmm. If we go back to the New Deal, right? One of the awkward outcomes of the New Deal was the Great Migration and the Great Suburban Project. What did they do? Well, black folks migrated from the Black Belt to the cities. Okay. Then they pigeonholed them with redlining. Oh, you got a job here. You can buy a house here, what have you, right? Remember, this was still during Jim Crow, y'all. And then after that happened, right, we can get into the Eisenhower interstate system and how that created more segregation. That's a whole nother ball of wax. But we come forward with LBJ. He had no choice but to sign the legislation when it got to his desk, right? And then he said what he said, and then they further segregated, and even not even segregated, but divided families with the Great Society Plan, right? Now, now that we have Democrats running in these segregated communities, see, Jim Crow didn't go away. They just politically flipped it. Oh, you got a little bit of freedom. We're still going to keep you segregated. You still can't live in the suburbs because we're going to call the cops on you. And one of the court cases that came out of that was Terry v. Ohio, right, which basically allows you to be stripped of your privacy at any given time by a police officer. And that adjudication literally put black folks in a pigeonhole in these communities. Because they would randomly stop people, stop and frisk, all that comes from Terry v. Ohio, right? So now they prop up, like you said, these black folks. You can run Democrat, you can be part of the process and have a voice, and again, not have a voice and not try to fix the systems. But at the same time, these same folks, especially today, if we bring it to modern day, are pointing at the Republicans saying, oh, wait, well, they're not doing anything about it, when the whole time it has been the party you've been in bed with the whole time that has been pigeonholing you. The people that are running in your communities are not trying to change it, either because, one, they don't have the power, or number two, they are propagating the system and profiting off of it.
Bingo. Because that's what benefits. And the funny thing is, what people don't know is that they got the model, and as you mentioned, from the Great Depression in Chicago. Because they started to do it in Chicago. They got incumbent people who had been in seats for a very long time.
Yep.
And the Democrats came together and said, okay, you know what, we're going to go ahead and we're going to set this up looking like we're going to support this Black community. We'll get him out. We'll give it to you. And if you give it to you, we need you to do our bidding. When we want something to cross, when we want something to vote in Congress, that's what we're going to need you to support us. And I forget the gentleman's name, and it was a big case because he even, wrote a whole thing on it back in the day when he said, when I got to Congress, when I got to Washington, I realized that I was just a pawn, that there was no actual concern for what happened in my community back in Chicago, but I had to do the bidding because they got me the seat. And it wasn't the realization of you are just a tool that we need to use, that we need to parade out when it is convenient to say, look, we're not racist. We have Black Democrats. And that's the first time. And anytime you ask somebody like, oh, with the party switch, you hear that BS party switch. That's the first time they say it, not realizing that the Democrats didn't switch. They just shifted tactics.
Yep.
Because they understood how perception, and it was so funny because Cuomo and I forgot his name, were arguing on CNN the other day, and Cuomo said it. He goes, what wins elections? He goes, perception, not facts, perception. And the Democrats have been playing the perception game for over a century on how does this look?
They have.
And then we're going to make it look this way because that fits our narrative, because you're not going to question us when we say, look, we support Blacks. We have a Black politician in Chicago. Okay, great. So trust us. Where's your Black Republican? And it's like, there were Black Republicans. In fact, the first, I believe, 23 Black politicians were Republican. But the Republicans of the day were not utilizing that as a tool, as a propaganda.
Right.
And that's where they got that model from, to then recreate it again after the Civil Rights Movement pushed. It was like, that worked then, let's do it again. And they did it in the South. There was no party switch. There was a strategic shift of how they went about it. And so I think that Black people need to just step back and learn true history, right? I mean, our school, you cannot rely on our school systems to tell you anything. They're run by the same government that has been doing all of this stuff. And Black people need to step back and understand and question, why are we not taught this stuff? Why do you have to research it on your own? First of all, ask that question. They should be forthcoming with this information, but they're not, because everything's an agenda. Everything is a reason. And again, it's to the analogy of, if you're going to be robbed every single day by somebody, why are you trusting them to come into your home the next day? And I don't, and you and I get it a lot when we're on our social media platforms, is that, especially from other Blacks, that they will come and you don't know what you're talking about. This is what it is. And, they're racist and Republicans hate you. And this is like, prove it. Show me history that proves that. Show me voting history, because Congress has to keep every single vote that has happened on that floor. Yep. You could go back and look in the archives, look at who votes for what, and tell me why they hate me. And they can't. So I don't understand. And I guess that's one of the things that I just sit there and question, right? I do not understand how it is perpetuated, and that there is not a mindset, but yet we are traitors to our race, though we are on the side that is trying to do better for our race. But I don't understand how it maintains that people are just, with the amount of information that's in the palm of your hand, how are you still this blind?
I mean, even with the party switch narrative, right? And I've talked about that on this show. I've even went to the historical detail, starting back in the 1860s with the Lily White movement, and the shift in demographics due to that, and the voting habits. I've gone through that on this show. I've done multiple shows on it, but I always just poignantly point out, they say that Richard Nixon employed the Southern strategy, right, to get racists in the South to vote. Okay, why would racists in the South vote the same as Black people did? Because, I mean, if we look at the records, Richard Nixon got 32% of the Black vote in the United States.
Yep.
32%. So if there was such a party switch, a racist party switch, why would the racists vote along with the party that had Black folks voting for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
it makes no sense.
It doesn't
makes
make
no sense. And no one could ever refute that. Well, that was just an anomaly. No, that wasn't an anomaly. People were tired of what was happening at that point in time. Yeah, Nixon was a crook. That's besides the point. Doesn't matter. What was happening in those 5 to 6 years running up to that election, right? Because we got to remember, this is post civil rights. And the promises that Nixon had made to make sure that got cleaned up, which the first thing he started was the Philadelphia plan, right? Part of the Philadelphia plan was to literally clean up all of the racism and the Jim Crow that was happening in this country. People don't talk about the Philadelphia plan because Nixon, quote unquote, was a crook, but that was a good policy to enforce for the most part, right? That, you know what I mean? To make sure there is true equality, make sure the law of the land was being enforced. But no one looks into that part. No one looks at that. They just go on with their spew. Democrats are racist. I mean, Republicans are racist. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh my God, Jesus Christ, really? I don't even respond to that kind of stuff anymore because it's like they have not done the due diligence to understand how we got here and how they got to their thinking. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, and they don't understand that Democratic policy is. I mean, the New Deal that was rolled out, that was basically the first form. I mean, call it what it is. That's the first form of welfare. That's the first form of government assistance going to the Black community. I think it was like 70% of Blacks voted for the first time. Because prior to this, Blacks voted Republican for the first time for Roosevelt because the promise of his New Deal sounded great. But at the same time, Roosevelt did not go against, poll taxes. He did not advocate to end any of the stuff that was happening because he needed the Southern Democrats' votes. But they don't quite. And then what he said would happen did not happen. It actually put them into a worse state, right? It was rely on the government. We're going to take care of you. We're going to help you out. Eliminating that freedom of that capitalism, right? That freedom of creating your own. And that actually started them down the path of the dependency on the government. And then to do it again, like you said, in the Nixon era, and then, we had all of that to happen again. It just perpetuates, history is just perpetuating itself because they don't have to rewrite the playbook. It's still working. And that's the thing that just baffles me is that they aren't changing their plays because you're still buying it. They're still faking you out. And it's right there in front of your face. And that's why, people all the time like, oh, you shouldn't call people stupid, right? There's some people are just ignorant. There is ignorance, meaning you have not been presented the information, therefore you don't know it. And there's stupidity. You are willfully choosing to ignore the information once given to you. And I hate to say this, but I feel like more and more people are becoming stupid because they see it, right? Thousands of other people are out there saying, look at the facts, look at the truth, look at the history, look at what really happened. And it's like, no, I don't see it. You're wrong. Y'all are racist. You're racist. You're a race traitor. What? And it's terrifying because the playbook still works, even though there's evidence of what they're doing and what it does to the Black community.
You know what's funny about that, though? You know what's really funny about that is that these same people, right? They talk about racism, right? Racism is prejudice plus power, right? Right? Mm-hmm. Follow me here, right? And they talk about dismantling white supremacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And white folks are inherently racist, right?
Apparently, yep. Mm-hmm.
So why would you put a white man in the White House under those pretexts, right? And all the other white folks you have voted for into Congress, why would you put them there? See, it's the literal hypocrisy of the whole thing for me, right? We got to dismantle white supremacy, and white folks are inherently racist, but
let's put white racists in the office.
Right. Not only that, but they also say the government is part of white supremacy, right? So I fail to understand their logic on this one, right? Because you're going to sit here and put white folks in the highest office of the land, claiming they are inherently racist, They uphold white supremacy. Prejudice plus power, government is the power, creates racism. But you're going to turn around and beg that same government to take care of you.
Yep. You can put your hand straight out. And that's the thing I get, and I'm sure you get it all the time, right? You're tap dancing for the white man. You're spitting the white man, the white supremacy rhetoric. And you want to just look at them and be like, no, actually you are. Because you are begging this same white power supremacist government that you say is racist, because prejudice and power equals racism. You're begging them to take care of you. So you are combating me, who is saying, do not rely on them. There is nothing holding you back. There is not one system in place today that you are forced into because of the color of your skin. And yet you're turning to the government that is, according to you, racist and part of the problem, asking them to take care of you and provide for you. So which one of us is tap dancing for who? Because I'm independent on my own and my success is based off of what I've achieved. Where is yours? And they just don't see it that way.
But they're allies. They're allies. So it's
They're
all
helping
washed clean. It's all washed clean. It's like, yeah, they said that too during the late 1960s too. And yet pigeonholed you.
Yep. And that's what I don't understand. Because if you actually look at it, right, if you look at those blacks that become conservative, become libertarian, become towards the right leaning, they tend to be, educated. I'm not talking like formally college. Some are, some are not, but they educate themselves. They question things. They research things. They come with facts always. If you ever get into a discussion or a debate with someone that is of a right leaning and is black, they are not coming at you with how it feels. This is the facts. And then on top of which, they are usually successful, right? And by successful, I don't mean, we have black billionaires, we have black millionaires, we have black business owners. They are successful in the sense of they are not reliant on the government to provide for them. And so when you look at the percentages and how that breaks down, and I probably should do a study on this, I would guess that the majority of blacks that are on government assistance in whatever form that is, do not align with the Republican Party. And it makes you wonder, wait a minute, let me get this straight. There's a whole group of blacks that do not rely on the government to be okay, to be successful, to strive and to get what they want. But they don't vote for the handouts of the timeout. But the ones that are voting for it, you're still in poverty. You're buying that it's somebody else's problem that you're being held down. Which one of us are wrong? Which one of us aren't waking up? Which one of us aren't helping the next generation to become better?
And speaking, it's still in historical context. If we go back, right? If we go back to the late 1860s, early 1870s, the Republicans had the same idea, right? With the dependency bit, right? It's called the Freedmen's Bureau, right? The Freedmen's Bureau was to actually help uplift the slaves and, get them, what they needed to survive, because obviously, right, they've been slaves for so long, et cetera, and I get it, right? But the Republicans shut that down because they found out real quick, this is going to get expensive really quickly. So let's turn around and give you the means to succeed, tell you how to succeed, but we're not going to fund you to succeed.
Yep.
Meanwhile, the Democrats took that same blueprint, twisted it around, sprinkled some salt and pepper on it, and made it taste good.
Yeah.
And here we are.
And that's the thing when people say, people fall on hard times. I need help. Nobody will dispute that, right? Because as you talk about the Freedmen's Bureau, it was designed to be in function, I believe it was like during the war plus 1 year after. And it was supposed to be a temporary program for slaves and poor whites for Medicare, to put some slaves onto land that was acquired through, the war. And that was what it was set up to be. And you're right. It was pushed down because of the funding, the cost of it, and then, race issues and the Reconstruction. But it was always we'll give you the tools. And the Democrats, you have especially celebrities out here, right? You have LeBron James, Kevin Hart. Oh, well, yes, the white. So let me get this straight. Y'all are millionaires. You're doing this from your mansions. You're telling blacks they're oppressed and it's the white man's fault, but you are not giving them the tools. You're not giving them the how did you get out? How did you make it? What did you do? because it's possible. But
go ahead.
No, it's that you're just not. They will not tell you. So question why that is.
Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna answer that question why, because they don't want them to think that it took a white man for them to get into that front door, right? I mean, let's keep it candid and real. Black folk don't control anything. They don't control anything major in this country. Hollywood, anything in corporate America. That's a fact. None of it. It's all white dudes, right? And just like Master P said, I'm not trying to be a player in the league. I'm trying to be Gary Bettman. You hear what I'm saying? I'm trying to own the league, right? That's his mentality. That's how everybody's mentality should be. I don't want to own the league, right?
Yep.
But these people like Kevin Hart and LeBron won't tell you how they got there, because it took a white man that they are calling racist on television to get them there.
Yep.
So don't mess with these white folks are inherently racist. Don't mess with them. They're going to oppress you. Meanwhile, they're making it rain on these black entertainers and professional athletes, buying them Cristal, buying them new cars, right? I mean, if you really sit back and look at it, check this out. And I'm going to go there a minute. And this is loosely contextual, right? But your professional sports, right? Your professional sports is almost like a protected slave ring.
Oh, see, okay, because you're right. Nobody sees it that way. I think about that all the time. I'm like, so you have black people performing for white people, and so white people are making the money. Now you're paying the blacks, the athletes, and that's great. But who's really making the money, the real money on the back end? But we're not going to talk about that because they're racist. We're not going to talk about that because, ooh.
Right, because I mean, if you watch an NBA game, right, for example, if you watch an NBA game and you look at the stands, right, how often do you see black folks in the stands?
That is the funniest thing. No joke. So the first NBA game I have watched over probably 5 years was last night. I went to a friend's house and they are white and they actually are on the liberal side, right? And as we're sitting there talking, she's watching. She's like, you know what I noticed? I'm like, what? She goes, there's like no black people that go to the games. And I looked at her and I was like, yes, there are. She's like, where? I go, well, if they ever zoomed up to the 300 level, you'd see them right there. And as they were walking out at the end of the game, I was like, see, there's one, and there's one, and there's one. And it's because who can afford to sit courtside? Who can afford to sit? Now, I'm not saying black people can't afford. Yeah, it's usually celebrities, but white people can afford to sit down there. But why is that? Because their mentality is, like you said, my mentality is not to be a part of it. I'm going to own this. I'm going to run this. That is a mentality that they are inherently driven in the next generation. Every generation is taught you will be successful and you will get there on your own. And so, do some have an additional advantage? Sure. But my parents sat us down and said, you will go to college, you will pay for it yourself, and you will become a success, and you have no excuse. I had a father who grew up in the 50s and 60s and now in South Carolina. Do you think he made excuses? But yet he raised himself up to be a manager for a Fortune 500 company with no high school degree. It is an excuse that they utilize. You want to be taken care of because the hard work required to get where they are, you don't want to do. And so instead, it's easier to sit back, take that handout, and say, well, they're racist, but I'm going to take the money that they'll give me, but I'm going to keep saying that they're racist.
But check out the flip, though. Staying on the NBA, right? They won't go purchase a ticket to go to the game, right? But they'll go buy the Nikes that Nike's put out. They'll go buy the $300 shoe because it's LeBron's shoe, right? That money ain't going to LeBron directly. That's going to Nike.
Yeah, he gets a kick of it. And that's the thing, because it's the propaganda, it's the messaging, it's the narrative that they are getting you to buy. You buy these, you will be like him. I don't want to be like him. I want as much money as him. What do I need to do? What you need to do is not worry about the dang shoes on your feet that cost you $600. What you need to do is get out there with whatever the heck you have on and practice, work hard, be in the day and night so that you are better than that next person on the court. Because that's what he did.
Yep.
But yet you don't want the hard work. I want to look like I worked hard. I want to appear like I've put in the work, but I don't want to actually do the work. So I'll buy the shoes that you tell me, because it started with our generation. I'll buy the shoes that Jordan wears because then I'll be just as good as Jordan.
Yep.
No, you won't. Now, Jordan will tell you, he got cut from his high school team. He was out there day and night practicing, working hard, doing what he needed to do to get where he wanted to get. He had no earthly idea he would reach the level that he did, but he knew he wanted something and he worked for it. And that's the message that we're missing with this next generation. You need to put in the work. You know, nobody owes you anything. If you did not experience Jim Crow directly, or you're not an immediate descendant from that, you are owed nothing. Too many generations have gone by. You have no excuse. So yeah, they're not going to buy the tickets. They're not going to do that and have that element of it. But we're going to put money into stuff that, don't even get me started. Your podcast will be 3 hours long. It won't work. The lack of accountability is baffling.
It's past baffling at this point. Like it's literally like I don't even know what really call it at this point in time, because it's literally ridiculous. I mean, the only thing we can do is keep educating, right? Keep propagating the truth behind everything, right? Because I mean, I'll be honest. I'm myself. My circle is very small, very, very small, right? I intend to keep it that way because there is no saving or trying to educate these people, right? There is no such thing as unity with these people. It's conformity with them, uniformity with these people, right? And I'm sorry, I came into this world alone. I did everything on my own, and I'm going to leave this earth alone.
Yep.
Period. And the only people that are going to give a damn are my close circle of people that stay around me. Those are the only ones that are going to give a damn.
And that's what they don't. That's it right there, right? You came in here alone, and I have a child. I tell my child all the time, nobody in this world cares about you. I care about you, but nobody else has to, nor do they. So you need to understand that if you want something in life, you need to work for it. It's not going to be given to you. And she is in a quote unquote privileged, society. She does not want for anything. And yet I'm instilling in her, you need to work. Because you're right. You're not, when you have these debates, when you have these discussions with these people, it's like, it doesn't matter what I show you, what I tell you, you're going to pick at something I say and run with that instead of the fact. You're going to create your own narrative. And so, it's either you conform to what we believe or you are wrong. And there isn't like, well, let's unite on where we have commonality. We don't have commonality. You blame somebody else for where you are in life. There is no self-awareness. There's no self-accountability for what you have created and what you have achieved. No choices you made. And they don't see that. I loved constantly when you say there's no systemic racist system. There's no systematic racism. Oh, the prison system. FYI, in order to enter into the prison system, you have to commit a crime. That is a choice. And they don't see it that way. But it's race. It's just, there is no unity with somebody who will not take self-accountability. You just can't do it. And so, how do you move forward then? That's my question to you. How do you move forward? How do we address this so that the next generation of Blacks in America and the further one from that are not perpetuating and allowing the playbook to still work?
Right. So they do. They keep pressing hard, right? Especially on this. I mean, we're very close to age. We are the first generation born post-civil rights, right? Generation X. Generation X. We're the first generation born post-civil rights, right?
Yep.
And to see these Xennials, these Millennials, these Generation Z cats, right? Get out here and act like, because they've been told, get out here and act like they have life so hard. I'm like, y'all, imagine living, especially being Black, imagine living through the end of a white supremacist South as a kid through the late 70s, early 80s. Imagine still being afraid that the Klan might come across the St. Mary's River over from Georgia to come harass the only black family in town. Yes, mine, right? Imagine having teachers literally call your house in the morning to make sure you're okay, and then you're going to get to school. If not, they will come pick you up because of the threats, right? These kids ain't never seen no oppression or seen even a little bit of oppression, right? Until you have lived through something like this here. And to have the mentality these kids have that everything's so bad, I say, you ain't lived through shit. And guess what? Generation X, we had the blueprint and we got it right. Y'all are trying to tear the whole damn thing down because of because of somebody with a degree that you're appealing to their authority, which makes you immorally wrong by default, appealing to authority, right?
Yep.
And then
go ahead.
You know what I'm saying? And then act like it's the truth when they tell it to you, like this critical race theory thing.
Yes. Well, they tell you don't understand. You don't get it. I'm sorry. My parents' marriage was illegal probably 5 years before they did it. That was not accepted as that came after civil rights, that an interracial couple could marry. So what do we not understand? It's this new generation that's, well, you don't get it. You don't know what you're talking about. You're dumb. Okay. But we lived it. Okay. That's right. And we have achieved great things in the height of that. But that's fine. They don't understand. I don't know. They don't understand.
I don't think it's not the fact that they don't understand. It's the fact that I think it goes deeper than understanding. I think it's more on the intellectual honesty level at this point. I mean, you can be ignorant. You can be willfully ignorant, right? Mm-hmm. And still be intellectually honest. The problem is that they allowed their woeful ignorance to cloud their intellectual honesty. And it's made them intellectually lazy.
Yes.
Is what has happened. True. So they don't want to look and research something, look into something, and they act like this critical race theory thing is some new concept. Boo boo. Critical race theory has been around since the 60s, okay? Mm-hmm. It's been around since the 60s. So this is not anything new. They just repackaged it because it didn't work after the civil rights movement. It didn't work. They had already tried this once. So now they repackage it now, and you have other people that are screaming, being the loudest voices for this, and bringing it back with a brighter and shinier bow. Yep,
we're just going to rebrand. I live in the world of marketing. We rebrand all the time. What's old is now new. It is all how it's branded. And how do I convince you? What works? What language can I use that your generation will buy this? And that's what I'm going to utilize. And so then that way, when you combat those that came before you and they're saying, no, listen to us. What they're telling you is wrong. What they're telling you is damaging. What they're telling you is going to put you backwards. Here's the language you use to offset them. Here's the language that you use. Like, call them racist. Call them race traitors. Tell them they're stupid. Tell them they're not educated. They don't know what they're talking about. Tell them all these things because they don't know. And it's like, my best one is when they're like, oh, well, clearly you're not educated. Honey, I have a master's degree from a top 20 university that I earned. I didn't get handed to. But please tell me how your 18-year-old self knows more than me and has experienced the life I have experienced.
And that's the killer. Mm. That's the nail in the coffin right there. I love when those teens, early tweeners love to come up with, you're not educated enough. Really? You're not? I'm not? Oh, excuse me, I'm 46, but I'm not educated, and you're barely out of fucking diapers, kid? Come on, man, right? Take a seat. Don't do this to yourself. Take a seat before you get embarrassed. You just found your way off
mommy's seat, and you're telling me what I don't know. Okay.
Right? It's like, come on, boo-boo. Don't
right,
do this
to yourself. I tell them, I'm like, I've experienced more racism on a Tuesday than you have in your entire life being born in the last 20 years. Like, they're they're racist. Where? Show me, tell them. And that the best part, ask them. Name one instance of racism you've experienced personally. Crickets. No, everybody's racist. White people are racist. They just want to throw racism at you. Tell me what racist experience you have, because I've experienced, 4 months ago going to South Carolina and not being served by the Black woman behind the counter at where we were because I wasn't Black enough, but yet she served the Black people behind me. The Black person in front of me, she even served the white group. But when I went up there, I was told that the kitchen was temporarily closed. So tell me the racism that you've experienced. Where is that? Oh, and that was from a Black person, by the way. So they don't know. It's just, this sounds good. This feeds my victim mentality. This feeds me getting handouts. It feeds me being lazy because I don't want to work for it. I see it. It's that Instagram instant gratification. If I want it, it should be given to me. I shouldn't have to work for anything because it's right there, right? I could just take it. No, that's not how the world works. Because even all these Instagram famous people, guess what? They still do work. But they don't want to tell you that because that's not glamorous. That doesn't sell their brand. So what you're seeing, you're buying the illusion and you're thinking it's reality.
Yep. Talk about the Mandela effect. I mean, that's basically what it is when it comes to when it comes to Black American politics, right? Everybody outside of our generation, I mean, coming forward, not going back, coming forward.
Yep.
We can't blame the education system per se on that matter. We blame, well, let me take that back. The education system has faults in it to a degree because they did not teach critical thinking. Right?
Yeah.
I can also blame the government hugely for that because it took the other parent out of the home to be able to teach their children right, teach them critical thinking, teach them right from wrong, right?
Yep.
Because they created an economy that requires two people in the house working, and the kids have to sit with nanny or what have you, right? Now, if we look at what they're trying to do right now with critical race theory, that is the moral blueprint for what they want to teach our children because the parents aren't home. See, so now you go to school because, you're not with your parents and your parents don't have time to teach you because they're probably working, cooking. So we're going to teach you your morals.
Yep.
And this is what CRT is.
And that's where we ended up. Yep. And and again, we were the first, what they call us, latchkey kids, right? Where parents weren't home. I mean, feminism. And as much as I am not a feminist, I'm old school feminist. Yes, right to vote, right to go to school, all that stuff. Yes. Let us work from home. Now, who told us that we need to work like men? Yes, we know we can do everything men can do. So let them do it. But I digress. But you're right. When it became, in order to function, you need two people in the workforce. You need two families because we're going to raise everything. And then, that's because that's how we indoctrinate your kids. But our generation, our parents still took that effort, right? Like my mom would come home at 6:30 at night from her job to just get us fed. But we had conversations. You didn't sit around the TV. You sat around the table. You talked about your day. You talked about the problems you were facing and how do you approach those? When you look at, they helped you. Your parents sat alongside you when you did your schoolwork. They helped you with your reports. They were engaged.
Yes.
And that is lost. That is gone. Where it's just like, well, the computer's teaching my child. It's fine. They don't need to do anything. And it's like that tactical stuff that we used to have to do, the writing the reports, the science experiment, all that stuff that helped you figure out because you run into a problem. Well, how do you fix the problem? What's the solution? Come up with solutions. It wasn't done for us. And nowadays with everything being instant and on computer and you don't have to read, we used to have to go, do you remember having to go to libraries, go through all the books, find one book that has one paragraph on the subject that you were going to write a 7-page paper on and use that one paragraph and have to expand it to an entire 2 pages. I mean, you had this stack of books and you'd be at the library till 10 o'clock at night. They don't do that anymore. It's all right here. And in fact, we'll give you more information than you need to write this. Just reword it. And it's just that problem solving, the critical thinking, like you said, and the questioning of, is this the best way to do it? That's being lost because it's just been fed to them. There is no, is this the best way? And because there is no that as a child, when you become an adult, they're not asking that same question. Is the way that the government is running, is this the best way? Where is that question? And they don't know how to ask it because they never had to.
No, because they've been spoon-fed what
Mm-hmm.
government is. This is why they completely have tried to change the language of the United States of America, right? They try to, because we know the United States of America is a constitutional republic. But they try to switch it up and say it's a constitutional representative democracy, right? They throw that democracy around, change the definition of democracy to make it sound good. I'm like, no, it's a constitutional republic.
Yep.
It is a constitutional republic ran by elected representatives.
Yep. And they don't understand that nuance, that difference, and how significant of a difference that is. They don't understand it. And then you see it, and I love when they're like, well, obviously more people voted for Biden, it's a blue state. And it's like, pull up the map. Show me where. Show me where it's a blue state. Oh, it's not. Okay. It's just a blue city that has more people noted. Okay. But they don't understand the nuances. They don't understand how stuff works. They don't understand if this is to question if this is the best way, to question if this is still working, and how the government was designed to be set up and run and how it is being set up and run. They don't see, because they're not taught, and then they don't go and learn for themselves. And that's the thing. We got to say, like, oh, they're not taught. Why aren't y'all going to find it yourselves? Go look for it. If you feel like you're missing something, if it doesn't question why that story doesn't sound complete, and go find it. The information is there. There are still, for everybody says, well, not every Black person has access to the internet. First of all, yes, they do. But whatever. Go to your library. Everybody has access to a library. Go learn. Go self-educate. If this next generation could learn anything from ours, question everything, research everything, and go learn for yourself before you take the word of somebody else. Ask for actual sources, not opinion.
Ain't that the truth? Well, we done ran up on time. I appreciate you, ma'am, for coming through and having this fire ass conversation. I know everybody else appreciated it because, we said some things that need to be said, and we always got to say what needs to be said and don't care. We don't care about your feelings.
My whole life.
Right.
So yeah, anytime. I had a fantastic time. I love having this kind of dialogue and exchange because I even learn new things. So anytime I would love to come back on.
Oh, no doubt. You know, I got you for all my for all the listeners that's listening or listen later. How can people find you and your content in the interwebs?
Yep, I'm on TikTok and I am on Instagram at Mixed Patriot, one word. I have been banned from Facebook, so you cannot find me there. I'm trying to get back in there. We're gonna see if that works.
Are you part of the dirty dozen of misinformation? Is that what
I'm not? You would think, right? You would think I was, but I'm not. And the best part is they banned both my business, my Mixed Patriot, and my personal. I lost everything. It was one fell swoop, no warnings, just gone. So yes, and then so mixedpatriot.com, and then TikTok and Instagram. Both of those are my handles. Same thing. So yep.
That's what's
That's
up.
where I am.
I appreciate you, ma'am. I appreciate you for, again, taking time out. And I know the listeners and everybody out in public radio land. I know y'all was listening with good intent. I want to say again, y'all have a great evening around here. Make sure you share this podcast on all of your social media platforms. And do me a favor. Go into this week, y'all, and count all your blessings. Count all your blessings. And remember, you're no better than the other man. Keep that in mind as you go through your day. Make sure y'all come back here on Monday for Capitol Hill Weekly. We got some fire coming for you from the federal government. They're spending a lot more money. And we're going to tell y'all about it. So until next time, y'all.
Thanks for listening to the Southern Liberty Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post about it on social media. Subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.bpmg.us or leave a rating and review on iTunes. To catch all the latest from Roderick, You can follow him on social media at manofjustice007. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.